from my friend Adam. He loves donuts. Like Homer Simpson, loves them. Welcome to the shop. I got myself a FMS Maule scale plane. A lot of scale features. Big 1.5 meter wingspan, 3S and 4S compatible. And it is a great plane. The original Maule, something I read said that when everybody was trying to make planes faster, those guys at Maule were trying to make them slower. And this plane loves to fly slow. Full flap, cruise around. It is a lot of fun. Have about 12 flights on it. And I really enjoy just kind of cruising with it, doing a lot of touch and goes, a lot of slow flying. Gotta really kiss it or else you'll bounce. Now with 4S, it'll move, it'll hover. It's got ample power. 3S, enough power as well. In this video, I'm going to go through my basic build, but very quickly, just the things that I thought, hey, you should know about. Things that I just had to tweak, little issues, no big deal. The other thing I'm then going to do is going to go over my setup. I've flown it 12 times now, so this is my setup after I've kind of made some changes to the stock setup. Also, one thing that I do point out in the first part of the video is my watt meter results. And just to let you know, it's pulling some amps on that 40 amp ESC. Gonna go and fly the heck out of this thing. Do a bunch of different flights, maiden flight in a strong cross breeze, really tested the landing gear, if you will. Oh boy, couldn't have hit much harder than that. I wasn't intentionally testing out the landing gear, but that's doing it for me. And then I flew it today, another day, and it was a perfect calm day where I can just cruise around easy. So give you a taste of that. And then in the end, I'm going to talk about who's this plane for. If you're a beginner looking for your first plane, this ain't it. I wouldn't recommend that at all. Go get that FMS Ranger. That's the first plane. This one, it requires you to have another skill set, which this plane will help teach you and enable you to cultivate that skill. So stick around. Hope you enjoy. Let's talk about the build. So the box and unboxing, we don't need to go over all that. It's packaged exceptionally well. What you would expect from FMS. Part count, not overly high, and there's nothing to glue. Everything is screwed together, and the good news is all the screws are pretty much the same. A whole bunch of machine screws, and then there's just a handful of small wood screws. Putting in the landing gear was no big deal. 4 screws, a couple plastic pieces. I tell you what, the landing gear is a beast. Love it. The horizontal stabilizer has these spars that connect underneath. When I tried to put them in, they didn't fit well. Little sandpaper, no big deal. They screw in with a couple of those wood screws. The rudder, as it comes down, as you're installing it, a couple screws, it traps that tail wheel bracket, which works out great. Funny thing, when I first put it together, well, I did kind of think about that one little screw that needed to go in there, and I was complaining that the tail wheel wasn't very sturdy. Oops, probably should have read the manual. There are 2 control rods with clevises attached for the rudder and elevator. They're the same size. And I think it took me longer to tweak on those to make sure that everything was straight and keep turning them in and turning them in. I had to turn them in quite a ways to make it fit properly and make sure everything's straight and level. All right, now the rat's nest of wires. It's not a big deal. There's a lot of wire. Probably a lot more than's needed as far as the lengths and such. But that's just the way it is. So tidying and everything up. I put on a 620 receiver, one of those sport receivers. Got that all nice and tidy in the bundle. And then I attached the receiver to the top of the hatch. Just made things a little tidier for me. Attaching the wings, 2 things. One is there was some paint on the inside of that fiberglass spar tube. And it made getting the spar tube into the wing a little tough. Took a little cleaning and everything was fine. The other are the cables. There are several, there's 3 plugs, and all that needs to get fit into these little pockets. A little fiddly, just take your time. It's not a big deal, but there was just something to do on that. I can't see myself removing the wings for travel, though. What I initially thought I could do something like that, there's no way. I'm not going to do it. Next step is making sure all the control surfaces are straight, and then going through and setting up the throws in my radio using my little tool here. Works out well, and it just gives you that extra confidence that you're at least doing it to book. Now, truth be told, I went a little ways outside of book in the end. CG 65 millimeters. That little tab where the servo is for the flap seemed to be a good mark for me. One of the last things I did before testing the motor, balance the prop. Needed a little bit of balance, but not a big deal. Threw on the watt meter, and on a 3S she drew 48 amps. Put a 4S in it, and it drew 64 amps. So something there to think about with a 40 amp ESC, which obviously it says it'll do a burst of 55. Just something to think about when you're flying. Hey, just so you know, this thing also comes with floats, and pretty good quality. I love the fact that they have some rigid plastic on the bottom of it, and it's steerable. So the servo's built into the pontoon itself. So pretty cool system. All right, time for Maiden and a bunch of flying around. Enjoy. Okay, one last control surface check. I'm gonna go medium rates. See how that works. Which in the book, it's more about high rates. Let's get her up and we'll get her trimmed and then do some testing on CG and stall speed, see what we get. Boy, she can drive down the runway like a truck. That's pretty nice to have. All right, we're up. About half throttle, and she needs a little up. She needs a little right. Needs some coupling on the aileron to rudder. A little bit more right trim. I'm gonna go up, kick that over. I mean, she's pretty stable, of course. I mean, it's a high wing STOL plane. But it appreciates a little coupling. Flying at half throttle. And so far, so good. All right, I'm gonna go up and do a bit of a stall test. Now this is with the wind. Full back, and she won't stall. She rocks the wings a little. Let's turn her around. Do the same thing this way. Up, 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 little up, 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 a little rudder. Come on, stall, drop a wing or do something. A little bit, but hardly anything. All right, let's try flap. We got half flap.
Time remaining 3 minutes.
Full flap. Let's bring her across. Got a little bit of a breeze going. She wants to nose up quite a bit with a little throttle, which is to be expected. We'll have to mix in a little bit more elevator. This is all right. Gonna get up, roll her over, inverted, hands off, Little nose heavy, but not bad.
2 minutes.
All right, we've been going 2 minutes left. 3 minutes in flight. Now, after I've gone through all that, now I'm going to practice a couple approaches. You know, a couple things I'll need to do. See if we can slow her down a little bit more. I want to try to get a nice land on mains kind of landing, so there's going to be a little bit more speed involved. Decent. Got a little bit of showing a little crosswind. Not bad though.
Time remaining 1 minute.
Alright, let's bring her in here. 1 minute. I think bring her in, then we'll make some adjustments. Right, backing down on throttle. Getting her nose up. Turn her around, bring her back. Now that was at mid rates, which is close to the high rates in the book. I think I would prefer a little bit more throw in the aileron and elevator. Okay. All right, let's give everything a good look. So we've been flying for about 4.5 minutes, and we will take a look at the battery. This is a flight after a couple days of having it. I've got quite a few flights in it, so really pushing it, having some fun. The throws are how I like it, and this kind of gives a great example of slow as well as some fun aerobatics. Enjoy. Little flap, and I love doing that. Little flap on roll off. It's kind of fun. Little half flap right here. Just cruising around slow. Got full flap. Boy, she flies nice and slow. Love doing that. And just fly slow, kick that tail around with the rudder, give a little opposite aileron to flatten it out. Just from that sake of just being able to fly this in close like that. I think with pontoons on a lake would be great too.
Time remaining 4 minutes.
A little more. I cranked on the rudder pretty good there. Probably didn't need as much rudder as I threw in there. So if you don't know, if that left stick is only for throttle and steering on the ground, you need this plane to learn how to use that rudder a little bit more effectively. Because when you move into some of the other planes, you really need rudder. And it'll take you to the next level on your flying ability.
Flaps up.
not pushing it. I'm just going about half throttle most of the time, maybe a little click over. Here you can do a little bit more yank and bank, of course. When you're pushing that speed, you don't have to coordinate as much.
Time remaining 3 minutes. Landing flaps. Flaps up. Landing flaps. Time remaining 2 minutes.
So much fun. This is a great plane. Just doing touch and goes. Cruising along just nice and easy as can be.
Flaps up.
I tell you what, this is a winner. Got a couple.
Time remaining 1 minute.
All right, let's bring her in.
Takeoff flaps. Landing flaps. Flaps up.
So much fun. All right, welcome back. So, a couple things. One is, like I said in the video, I made a note. I have a good 20-25 flights in this thing. Using the 4S battery. It's working great. I don't hit that full throttle very often. Most of the time, as you saw, the flight characteristics for me, what I like is that slow flying. Cruising around, half throttle and below. It'll do plenty of big maneuvers with that, and that's how I like to do it. I couldn't get it. I tried to do some flat spins or pop tops and things. I just couldn't get it to get that roll fast enough. The regular, as far as the normal flying around and doing a roll, had to mix in rudder. I will use my left stick for mixing. I'm not going to program it into the radio. I think when I transition to other planes, I think it's just having that skill set to use the rudder. I think it's important to be able to do that without mixing it. That's me. As far as other flight characteristics like landing, this plane lands exceptionally well. The landing, and what I mean is the wheelbase on this thing is huge. So I beat the heck out of this thing when I had some crosswind. Not a single time did I scrape a wingtip. This thing, it bounced all over the place, but the landing gear is solid. It's a great landing gear. It takes a phenomenal amount of abuse. Could you bust it? Oh, I'm sure I could when I pile it in sometime. That might happen. Who knows? Anyway, great landing gear. There's a couple things I really enjoyed. One is the look of it. You know, the other plane I have, the Turbo Timber E-flite, the original Turbo Timber 1.5. It's a great plane. I love it. I've made a ton of videos on it, but it doesn't look like this. This is a great looking plane, and this flies as good as that Turbo Timber at that slow speed characteristics. Just a fantastic flying airplane. Really like it a lot. So, bottom line for me, I give it a thumbs up. Good plane. That said, if you have any questions about it, you know, what I've done, the video, shoot me a comment. By the way, there is a link in the description for this plane. It's an affiliate link. There's also a 10% discount. If you're so inclined, you're like, hey, I want one of these. Yeah, it's a good plane. I highly recommend it. But use those links, and that discount code helps you out a little bit. Thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great day.